Welcome to the Packaging Therapist podcast. I am your host, Jessie Schwartz. I've been a packaging engineer for 20 years and currently the founder of Strategic Packaging Partners, where we are obsessed with creating strategic approaches to packaging to enable growth and cost savings in the CPG industry. My goal in this podcast is to discuss hot topics in the packaging space to enable you to make strategic decisions for your business that impact the bottom line and take the chaos out of manufacturing. Join us for technical discussions about packaging, and let's make the world of manufacturing better together. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Packaging Therapist. Today, we are talking about pallet patterns, cube specs, how your boxes go on a pallet, and why that's important. And I am joined today by Trey from TOPS. And Trey, let us know a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jessie. So a little bit about me. I'm a sales manager that also handles strategic partnerships with Top Software. Been doing it for, 8 years now, almost 9. Came out of college and actually I'm personal friends with the owner, and he said, hey, we're looking for some folks out in the packaging world of Top Software. And I said, all right, well, what's this all about? Got into it and haven't looked back since. Don't really have a packaging background, but I've learned to fall in love with it over the years. Went back to school, did my MBA, and it's just, getting into the business side of it and, happy to be learning and growing with the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us today. And let's talk a little bit about why it's important to design around that 40 by 48 pallet. So we're primarily talking food and beverage, but it applies to anything that goes on a pallet that's not custom shaped for whatever it is. So one of the industry standards, or the main industry standard around pallets, are a 40 by 48. And if you think about it, you have to ship the entire column of air above that pallet. So whether or not your product is there, you're paying for that through distribution. And say a little bit about why it's so important that we kind of have some forethought in pallet design and how product goes on a pallet, and some of the ways that you've seen customers utilize the design of a pallet to reduce costs of logistics.
Yeah, so with TOPS, our whole goal is to increase the amount of product that fits on that pallet, so product density. And a story I can actually share is one of kind of our founding stories of how TOPS really got started. And it ties into these fundamentals because it's the same story for the whole 40 years of our existence is that it's getting more product in that footprint that is ubiquitous throughout your entire supply chain. Just making sure that you're using it to its max. So 40 years ago, imagine this, so we're in 1984, right? And this is a big chip and snack manufacturer. And they're looking at this challenge that they have with shipping so much air. And what we had is Bill, who's the founder of TOPS, got in tight with one of these VPs in distribution. And they were looking at this problem and started off as a consultancy type of arrangement to see where can we get some efficiency gains on this. And what they did actually to dramatize this point was they took an entire 53-foot dry van, a full shipment of potato chips, took everything out of the boxes, all of the chips out of the bags, dumped them on the bottom of the truck. So how many inches do you think of the truck? How much potato chips do you think it actually filled up?
I mean,
to put you on the spot.
Maybe a sixth of the trailer.
Yeah, so trucks are 108 inches or so.
Yep.
It was only 10 inches of actual product, right? The rest is going to be packaging and air. So, so much room there for improvement. Obviously, you've got quality concerns and things of that nature, but with a product like this, shipping is a huge component of the cost. So what they did is they used actually the precursor to TOPS Pro, which is our product, and it was called Bag Sizer. And they did an analysis that showed that shrinking the bag size by just fractions of an inch here, fractions of an inch there, and running it through these different counts and arrangements and all the different pallet patterns that arrange from that, they were able to save, somewhere in the realm of 6, 7, 8% on each and every pallet that was going out. So you can imagine with their type of volume that the cost savings from increasing the product density at that pallet level by changing just the bag size, and then how that impacted the arrangement and counts inside the box, trickled through to shipping. It trickled through even to the warehouse management, because now you've got 7 to 8% more pallet room because you've increased how much product is able to fit on it. So it flows through everywhere. And what they proceeded to do from there was go and they showed it to the board. And that's how Tops really got kicked off, is because the product called Bag Sizer at the time was able to produce this data and actually show, here is what it's going to spec out at for each stage, from the box to the pallet to the truck, and then ultimately how that increased the yield. And from there, they took that and they ran with it. The next 5 years was traveling all around the globe to all the different manufacturing and distribution centers to effect this change across the board. And that's really what got Tops started, because that program that was written, Bag Sizer, was what became Tops Pro and is still used to this day in that exact same capacity. These algorithms are the same. They've been making the same type of improvements since day one.
Yeah, that's a great story. And to provide a little more background, if you aren't aware of Tops or a pallet diagramming software, it allows you to put the primary packaging. Let's say you've got cartons that go in a larger box. You put the dimensions in of all the primaries that go into the larger box. It helps you confirm that that box size that you have is right and all the cartons will fit in there. It can show you tolerances. And then it allows you to add those boxes to a pallet, and the program itself will diagram the entire pallet for you. And you can do different arrangements, column stacking, interlocking. You can create parameters and make sure that what you receive in terms of options actually works for your organization. For example, you can put in 0 overhang, because we all know overhang leads to a lot of damage. But the reason I really like it is if a business can think ahead and say, hey, this is what we're thinking in terms of a carton of, let's say, cake mix. This is what we're thinking. And if they can get a hold of their packaging engineer or potentially their supplier and say, hey, we're thinking about these dimensions, what does a pallet look like? You really only make little tiny adjustments that can have a huge impact. So when you think about a carton, if you just take a 1/16 of an inch out, sometimes you can add a whole nother case to every layer, or 2 cases to every layer. And so it allows you the freedom to say, okay, we have a little bit of play in the design, and hey, if we could save 15% on logistics, we would definitely consider slight modifications, because trade marketing drives a lot of decisions and how the product sits on the shelf. They really love the billboard, and they're not willing to they don't give up that space very easily. But if you can come at it with a financial story, then it becomes a different conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I like to call it the low-hanging fruit in a lot of these supply chains, because these things, it doesn't take very long to actually use a tool like Tops to do that analysis, to simulate it out, to get it out in front of you, to create concise and professional reports that not only visually but show the solutions, but also gives the data that you can then take and do these extrapolations on shipping, storage, even labor. It all comes down to pallet efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any advice for people as they take this information and they're like, wow, I really want to have a conversation with my business team around optimizing, or I want to have a conversation with warehouse managers, right? I think there's something here for my organization. Like, how do people start? Either we could talk about it from 2 ways. So if you've got a brand new product, that's one way. But another way is like, wow, we want to do an assessment. We really are looking for cost savings, and I'm not really sure. I don't even know what my pallets look like. I don't know which ones have maybe 2-3 inches of underhang, or maybe they're only 36-inch pallets and they could be much taller than that, 63. So say a little bit about a strategy around how people can take either new products or existing products and look at them.
Yeah, so it is two sides of the same coin, whether it's a new product that you're coming out with or something that you've got historically. And especially what I would say is start with the high volume items. Those are the ones where you're going to stand to have the most cost reduction and benefit from by doing this type of analysis. But when you look at those pallets, so many times the simple column stack can pass the eye test. Maybe it's got an inch of underhanger there, here or there. You can always start with those. It is super quick to say, I already have the box size. Not even going to change that. I just want to make sure I'm getting the best pallet pattern. That is a very quick analysis that we can do. Start there. We do even free trials. Come talk to us. We will be able to take you through how to actually do that calculation. But the other component of it is you've got to come up with the standards that you're going to have for your pallet. So depending on everyone's product is a little bit different. You have certain requirements from your customers and vendors, but establishing the maximum height and the amount of overhang that you're going to allow are kind of, step one. So whether that's the racking in your warehouse or if you're going to double stack in trucks, that's what's going to inform the maximum height for your pallet. But if you start off by getting concrete, these are the maximums that we can achieve on a pallet. Then from there, you can use a tool like TOPS Pro to make sure you're getting as much as you can out of those restrictions when you do your box design, when you do your pallet layouts, those types of calculations.
Well, that's great advice. In terms of how the industry is evolving, we kind of started off with the snacks, the bagged snacks, and then it was like, wow, there's a huge opportunity here. And TOPS has kind of evolved now to being a tool that anyone can leverage, whether it's a tool that you have internally or your packaging suppliers are have it and kind of help you make decisions. Where do you see this industry going in the future to even be something organizations can leverage even more for insights and abilities to save money all the way around, right? Reducing packaging, increasing the quantity on a pallet, those types of things.
Yeah. So, where I see it going is everything is coming down to data-driven decisions, right? That's some three-letter buzzwords there.
Yeah.
But, it's true. You got to see the information to make good decisions. And so a lot of times where people are starting and wanting to go and get into this type of optimization is that need to make decisions, and they want the data for it. So we're able to produce that. And where I see, things really going is seamless integration between a platform like TOPS Pro and perhaps, a PLM, your ERP, WMS, any of those systems that serve as repositories for that data, doing the calculation in TOPS and then having it automatically, arrive and be semi-permanently saved in those systems is really what there's a hunger out there for that. Because then you've got concrete data that can inform current and future strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we see AI or large language model data decision making come kind of to the forefront of everything, including manufacturing, do you think TOPS will ever get to a point where it's actually making suggestions? Because I know when I've used TOPS in the past, I could kind of manually adjust a carton or a case. But do you think you'll get to the point where it's making suggestions, like, oh, take out a quarter of an inch or take out whatever you could get better, this much better?
Yeah, I think, and in preparation for this, I was speaking a little bit with the development team and talked about that. This is definitely something on our radar. Where we see it as being the most useful is really just making the user experience that much simpler. Like you said, it's over time, it is recognized that, if you're doing domestic shipments, that's usually 53 dry vans, at least in North America. The height on those 100, 108, 110 inches. So if you're going to double stack these, go up to 54 inches on that maximum pallet height. Those type of suggestions and the overhang. And then also where we see it'll be helpful is with actually getting kind of metadata out of TOPS. So right now you do an analysis for a single type of product. So you're going to look at its entire packaging sequence from the retail unit, out to the pallet to the truck. Well, there's a lot of information in there from parameters to the actual solution information, and being able to compile that and kind of query it in a user-friendly way is something that we look to include in future versions of TOPS as well.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see that come out and to see the program evolve even more. So anything else your developer said you want to share with us? The
Well,
nerds of the
sure. Yeah. The ones that make it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our focus really has been though, in just the past few years has been this great migration to the cloud, of course. That is continuing to grow and being able to provide accessibility and security for these companies and their data that they're generating from a program like TOPS, and how we connect those cloud solutions to these other systems. That is really where we've been focusing most of our development effort. Now I say that we are going to have an exciting new release, TOPS Pro 7.0. It's going to be a major version release, a whole new user interface. It's going to get a facelift. So all of that's going to be part of, in the next few months here before 2025, that's going to be rolling out as well.
Any demos at Pack Expo?
Yes. Come
Okay.
visit us at Pack Expo. We'll be there. We're doing trainings for our live trainings for our current customers. If you want to be a part of those, let us know.
Cool.
And we'll get you taken care of.
So I want to kind of circle back to, we talked a little bit about strategies and how people could think about leveraging cube specs for their organization. We talked a little bit about like, okay, where would you start? Okay, your top 10 SKUs, and then taking a look at those pallet specs, and either you'd have them internally or that would be something that you could get from your supplier. You should be able to get from your supplier. What types of utilization numbers should people be looking for? Because like on a TOPS report, it will have different data around dimensions, but it will have a utilization number. So a percent utilization of that pallet. And it's good to set parameters for what ideal is, because 100% isn't appropriate, or
Not
it's
possible
not
a lot of
achievable,
times.
right? Yeah. A lot of times, or like you wouldn't aim for 100%. So talk a little bit about some of the data around a cube spec, so if folks want to take a look at their products, they kind of know, oh, this could be an opportunity. And then any kind of information you have around, okay, well, let's say it's only 70%. If you jump up 20%, are there any kind of thoughts around savings, like in terms of percentages, or anything you'd speak to around that?
Yeah. So to kind of start this, I would say it does come back to, as far as utilization, having concrete maximum parameters, because you can kind of fudge the numbers on that when your utilization is based on a parameter that's not truly your maximum possible. So getting concrete on those is number one. But then as you do these calculations, the big thing you'll find is that with smaller items, there are lots of good options and good possibilities. So those aren't typically smaller items. You can get 90+% cubic efficiency, and really what you should be targeting for, especially small items that you can do lots of different case counts and arrangements with. Those ones really need to be up there in the 90th percents. Larger items are much more difficult, but those are also where you really need to lean on TOPS to do those calculations the most, because with larger items, there are fewer good options, right?
Sure.
Because it's bigger. It's a small footprint. It's just not going to fit very well. So with those larger items, you really need to make sure you're getting the best layout, because if you're not, the difference in efficiency will be 15-20%. So those larger items, making sure you're doing the right count, orientation, arrangement of those units in the box or, and out to the pallet is going to be critical. With those, it just depends. If it's a pretty big product, 70% plus is a bit more realistic for those.
Okay. And then say a little bit about pallet strengths, because, we're double stacking, sometimes triple stacking, and column stacking. Anytime you can stack corners on top of other corners is when you get the most strength out of the corrugated box. And flutes should always run vertically. Okay. But sometimes it's like you don't want like a tippy pallet either, because sometimes columns can create sort of this leaning Tower of Pisa effect. So we interlock, right? And do you have any guidance around how a pallet pattern is built in terms of interlocking? And what are the downsides of kind of disengaging some of those corners? Any best practices on that?
Yeah, obviously, if you're worried about quality assurance, you've got crushing going on, then like you said, the corners is going to be better. Anytime you have a more square box, those don't interlock too well, right? Because a square, you're not going to get the when you interlock, you're not going to get that crossover, that kind of bricklaying look that you want that's going to create the stability. So, if you've got a heavy product and crushing is an issue, then, your column stack is going to be the best option for strength. Within TOPS, we have a stacking strength calculator. And what our goal of that program is basically to look at the solution you calculated, whether it's got, the degrees of interlocking, because a lot of times you can column stack the first few layers and then, rotate the top ones to prevent the tipping, at least at the top portion. So those factors are taken into account in TOPS. It also lets you input other factors, of course, like humidity, storage time, modes of transport. Those things will play into, our formula that calculates what the recommended ECT range is for your box. And so depending on how aggressive versus conservative you want to go with that, we can suggest here's a range. If you've got a pretty durable product that you're not worried about, getting a little bit of damage is okay, then you can be more aggressive on the corrugate and your materials there. But otherwise, you can use that to get an ECT range that you can go and take to your suppliers and make sure you're within that type of range.
That's great. And then when you do get those cases and you get that range of ECT and you talk to your supplier, it's always really important to test that out as well. So test it through your case erectors, test it through your palletizer, and then if you can, take that whole system to a third-party evaluator, kind of depending on risk, and you can talk to your business team about that. It'd be great. It's always good to get a third-party evaluation of the whole system and validate the specs. And if not, I have some clients who they'll load a trailer up and drive it around and see what happens. Hit some potholes, neutral drop. Well, maybe not that one.
Yeah.
But just kind of wanting to understand and seeking to understand the total system. And it's also a good idea, especially if you're in a refrigerated or frozen where the humidity levels are higher. If you are double stacking, or even if you have just a single pallet, usually you don't double stack, hopefully, but test do a static test. So you just set those pallets in a corner for a few weeks and make sure that you're not seeing those cases being compromised and those pallets tipping over. That's also a good measure. Any other advice you'd give, Trey?
No, not so much. But there's always accessories and things of that nature you can add into, friction pads and such that can help out. Obviously, the classic stretch wrap can help with toppling, but yeah, and not for this show, but having the right force load for your stretch wrap is really, really important. Maybe that's another show idea. But you have to have the proper containment, and more wraps doesn't equal more containment. Right.
So cool. Well, anything else you're just dying to share?
Not at this time. We're excited for anyone that's felt moved by this conversation. Come out to our website, topsdng.com. We'll get you a free trial, let you talk with someone to get you set up with doing a quick case study. Pick your highest volume product and let's see if we can do better.
Yeah, absolutely. And details to connect with Trey and TOPS will be in the show notes. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you found the content helpful, please be sure to share your comments with me by leaving a review so that I can keep the topics coming your way. If you haven't already followed me, click subscribe on your podcast app so you get notified the next time we release a show. If you have packaging issues you want to talk about, contact us via our website at www.strategicpackagingpartners.com and click on the Contact Us page. Thanks, everyone.